Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this video, we're actually going to be responding to another video. This was a video that was put out by Upper Echelon Gamers. I've linked it down in the description, and we're going to be covering, we're not really fully responding to it, we're using it as a springboard to have a greater discussion about scalpers, because the topic was covered, I think the takes were pretty weak, and I feel like it's something that we should go over because it is something that gamers care about. Obviously, a shortage of PS5s, of Xbox X series, of high-end graphics cards is something that we care about, and I have a really good background to talk about this. Not because I've gone and done a lot of scalping myself, but because I've actually worked in the industry of price monitoring. I've worked with some of these companies that are having these shortages, but more in the other direction of, hey, let's make sure your retailers aren't selling your products for too little, that sort of thing. But we're looking at this. This is going to be it, and I won't go any further than that with the introduction. Let's just get into some things here.
Product. As a bit of a tangent, in an article posted by Forbes, a scalper going by the pseudonym really, Jordan, tried to claim that they provide an extremely valuable service as middlemen in the markets, and therefore the hate that they get is unjustified. I doubt he would ever see this video, of course, but on the off.
Okay, so the thought here is scalpers do absolutely nothing for the market. They're terrible, that sort of thing. Obviously, a scalper is going to way blow up what their value is and be like, yes, I'm the greatest ever. Everyone has a tendency to do that. But let's hear a little more.
Off chance that he does, you are a special kind of idiot, Jordan. Retailers like GameStop and Best Buy are the middlemen. Scalpers are just a self-inserting detriment to the experience of everyone else around them, when the commercial pipeline already provides distribution through middlemen to begin with.
Okay, so that's enough of that. So, nothing says whatsoever that there can only be one middleman. In fact, when you buy from Best Buy, it's not that unusual that, at least in the olden days, you'd buy something from Best Buy, you're trying to buy a PS5, and it would be, hey, Sony makes the PS5, great, they make the PS5. They then would sell to, say, a wholesaler. They would then sell to a distributor, someone like that. They sell to someone, and then that someone would go sell it to stores themselves, and this would be less true when we're talking something like Best Buy, who will have their own person that does this, but this is true in many industries. We could talk about this with Sony, we could talk about this with sneakers if we were talking Nike, we could talk about this with all sorts of things where there are middlemen and they exist, and that actually is a pretty standard piece of the supply line of what works out there. So PS5 goes to a distributor. Distributor actually is the one who then goes ahead and takes their cut and then sends it to Best Buy, and then Best Buy sells it to you. So this isn't like, there's already one middleman and there can't be more than that. There doesn't even have to be any. Sony can sell these things in-house themselves.
Products are made,
but sometimes it's useful to have them because, hey, there are extra ways to get more product out there.
Manufactured and then handed off wholesale to a retail company like Best Buy, just as an example, who then runs logistics and allows users to interface with their commercial portal to order and receive an item. Scalpers on the
Yeah, and more manufacturers are doing this themselves, where they're cutting out that. They're not actually getting rid of that middleman, but they're going, hey, HP is going to sell HP stuff directly on HP's site. Sony is going to sell Sony stuff directly on their site. But they also, of course, are going to go, hey, we're going to go be selling our stuff through Amazon, through Best Buy, through any number of other places. So there's not a limit to one here.
On the other hand, abuse that interface provided by an actual retailer, secure a large amount of items, then utilize another platform, like Facebook as an easy example, to resell that product, thus providing literally nothing to anyone at all, except a higher price for the item they could otherwise get from middleman number one, if not for the scalper.
Okay, but that's wrong. So, the value that the scalper is actually providing is just following a simple supply and demand curve. So if we put, let's just go like this. Let's just go, hey, we're going to have a curve like this. We're going to have a second curve like this. And most of you are going to recognize this, or I hope would recognize this, as a supply and demand curve. And what we're looking at is, hey, supply and demand meet. Ideally, that's what you price it at. That's going to sell you the maximum number of units. Great. And it's no terrible shocker that if you have your price, so you have your price going along this axis, let's just use this here. Let's get our trend here. If you've got your price going along this axis, well, there's a huge amount of demand for things at a price of basically zero. Like, yeah, there's near infinite demand for that. And then, there's going to be basically no supply at that price, though. However, as we go over further, so we go over to our, $1 bajillion, we can keep going with zeros versus zero. Let's make you, because we didn't really do that well enough, let's actually go more like this, and let's go, and we'll keep going like that. So that's, and then we'll go zero. Where, hey, there's going to be near infinite demand for a PS5, for example, at $0, and there's going to be basically no demand for it if we get over to $100,000, $1,000,000, whatever we want to go with there. So those sort of curve off eventually, but they do ultimately, I probably flatlined these too much, but they do eventually go. Well, what's happened here is Sony and Microsoft and Nvidia and AMD have decided that we're going to put our price point, we are going to put our price point down here. And if we put our price point down here, well, if we force our price point to be down here, well, guess what? Demand is higher than that price point. So this difference right here is always going to be filled up. It's always going to get filled up. If you put the objects, you force the price just through like, hey, we're going to decide that we should sell this for 800 instead of 1300 when people will buy it for 1300, and we don't have enough units to fulfill people's desires at 800, you're going to have this gap, and this gap will always be filled. It doesn't matter if it has to be filled legally, illegally. You will see this even on commodities. You will see this in countries that actually put laws in place, and we have these in the US, for example, that say, hey, you can't do price gouging during crises. You can't just jump the price of something. And that's why you didn't see grocery stores, when there was a huge toilet paper shortage, go, we're going to charge 5 times as much for toilet paper. People actually would have paid it, but there's laws in place that don't allow that. And you see similar things with gasoline, with food, with water, that sort of thing. But you can go to other countries. We could go to South America, for example, and if you had something that said, hey, the government is just going to decide that gas is going to go for 150, well, what's going to happen is people are going to buy up as much of that gas as possible, even if it's illegal to do so, and then they're going to sell it at a markup, because it's been mandated to sell it at 150, but the actual value people are willing to pay is $6. Well, guess what? Someone will always come in here and fill this spot, even if it's mandated that it has to go for this, because that's how supply and demand works. So we look at this and go, hey, the good that is being accomplished by these scalpers here is they're saying this isn't real, like this artificially forced down price down here is not real, is not actually what the market bears. The price is up here, and therefore what we're going to do is we're going to bring the price up on this unit because there's too much demand for it. We're going to bring the supply curve in line with the demand curve. Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And that actually does serve a purpose. The purpose you specifically get is, hey, there are people who are going to be willing to pay more for a PS5, for gasoline, for whatever, than this retail price that was set down here. And I get that this is uncomfortable, and I'll circle back to that in a second. So, like, what it does is it means the person that's willing to pay $1,300, $1,500, $2,000 for the product actually can get that product. So like the product is actually available, as opposed to the setup you have without scalpers, where you artificially force the price too low, which is the product is simply not available. Full stop. That is not actually better than the product, being at a low price, but you not being able to get it. It's okay if it's like it's too high a price, it's not what you're willing to pay, you're willing to wait until the price comes down. That is perfectly fine. But what scalpers are accomplishing, because the industry is not accomplishing this correctly itself, is they're saying people are willing to pay this price. And you might be saying, well, why would people be willing to pay this price? Or why is it important that some people can get a PS5 at a higher price rather than just, a lottery system to get it at the lower price? Well, capitalism would be one answer, but the other answer would be there are people who are going to have greater needs for a PS5 than other people, and those people who have greater needs for it, or it's more important to, should have the ability to get it by paying a higher price. For example, if you are a streamer and you're making tons and tons of money streaming or covering a game or whatever the case is, and you can go, hey, I need to cover the next Final Fantasy VII remake that comes out, audience is absolutely going to love that, have to be able to do that, it's going to be worth it to you to go, yes, it's a business business expense to go get a PS5 for 1,300 instead of 800. Whatever the case may be, there was that decision doesn't make sense for other people. But someone can't go do that thing. They can't run their business in the way that makes sense, even though that purchase would have made sense for them at a higher price point if we have a situation where, no, we just have to lottery system it off for this price point, even though the demand is clearly higher than the supply at this value. Okay, so that's what we wanted to, that's what, the sort of the like main point is, and that is what a scalper is actually accomplishing. But let's continue to listen and respond here.
Scalper. There is, point blank, objectively, period, no actual benefit whatsoever in the existence of a scalper. They are only a bad thing all of the time for everyone.
No, they're a corrective market force that allows someone, like in the example I just gave of this person places more value on having a PS5 than someone else, and they're willing to pay a higher price for it so they can actually get it. Now, ideally, in a perfect market, the scalper would not be the one accomplishing this. What would actually happen here is either the manufacturer, Sony, Microsoft, AMD, Nvidia, would recognize these things, and they would actually price their products effectively. They would price their products higher. They'd put their pricing, let me change colors here. They would put their pricing up here until they could bring more supply online to hit a better supply-demand balance. As more supply becomes available, of course, demand will drop because your supply, your demand is, like I mentioned, high, is going to be higher as the price comes down. But you can make more money by going, hey, we want to get more units out there. So there's a place where supply and demand meet. So what's actually being accomplished by the scalper is fixing the fact that these manufacturers are not charging the right amount. And you can say it's not the manufacturers, it's the retailers. And that's perfectly fine too. It is the retailers. There's always going to be some markup between the manufacturer and the retailer. And what's going to happen here is I've actually done a lot of work in this area where the manufacturer is going to go, hey, we make our product, we have our product, we have this. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a MAP policy in effect. We're going to put a minimum advertised price policy in effect. So we are going to say we sell our, we'll use, do I want to keep picking on Sony? I guess I do. We're going to send out our PS4s to Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, GameStop, all sorts of different places, and we're going to say, hey, we're not allowed to tell you what to sell it for. The laws say we can't tell you what to sell it for, and that makes sense for a lot of reasons. But what we can do is we can say we're not going to keep supplying you with product if you sell it for less than this amount. And the reason a manufacturer will put a policy like that into effect is they're going to say, hey, if you guys go, hey, we're currently making a 30% markup selling PS2s at GameStop, well, I bet we could sell more PS2s and make more total money if we instead let ourselves get a 20% markup and we decreased the, price that we sell it at. And that's great. That might be like, oh, hey, you move more units and that's perfectly fine. But the problem that you run into there is then Best Buy looks over and goes, okay, well, we have to match your price. Amazon looks over and goes, well, we have to match your price. And that might still be okay because then they all match, but you're not actually selling more units in that case. You're more total units from Sony's perspective. You're only selling more units and only temporarily as Best Buy. But then you have trouble moving the price back up because if you move your price back up, Amazon and GameStop aren't going to match you. They're not going to also go back up with you. They're going to go, no, we're going to have this lower price. Once anyone goes down, it's really hard to get people to go back up together. Hence, these MAP policies exist because you get a very short-term gain if you drop your price before the demand for that product has actually dropped to sustain that lower price, but doing so does give you short-term gain. So that's why these MAP policies exist, and that's why companies have them. And this is very normal, and companies are used to this. But this is kind of the opposite. This is my background, but what we're looking at here is kind of the opposite. The prices are too low, and all of these companies have these price matching things, and the manufacturers themselves are going, well, we don't want to be seen as being evil for releasing our product as too expensive or for raising our product on something that isn't a commodity, that is, either a entertainment thing or a business tool. We don't want to be seen as evil for raising our prices during this, and it's just foolish. Like, of course you should raise your price on this, and that you're not raising your price on this is when the demand is that high is why scalpers are coming to play on this, because you should put your price at a point where supply and demand match here. And again, this would be very easy to fix. You could have Microsoft go, we are raising the price on our Xbox X Series, either going, hey, we're raising our manufacturer suggested retail price, or we're raising the price that we sell it to our retailers at. So then the retailers go, well, in order to maintain our markup, we're going to have to raise our prices here. And this is what should be happening, truth be told. Like, scalpers are being allowed to get involved here and make money because neither the retailers nor the manufacturers are correcting this. It is very hard in some ways for an individual retailer in the previous example of, hey, how do you bring your price back up to correct it? But it's not actually in this example hard for a single retailer to bring their price up at all. If you are GameStop and you go, yeah, we're willing to price match whatever, and someone goes, hey, I can get a Xbox X Series for 800 over at Amazon, from Amazon.com, the seller Amazon, you just go, can you really? Because if they can't actually order them, if the product isn't actually available, why would you be price matching it? And it's again the like systems, they haven't caught up, they're just being foolish about this one. So that's really how that one works. And so again, what the scalpers are accomplishing here, they're not providing no value to anyone. The value that they are providing is purely a value of, hey, this product is actually available for the people that want it more and are willing to show that they want it more by paying more, which does make sense when you have things where, again, this is not a commodity. If it was a commodity, there's arguments for, hey, everyone should have lottery access to water, lottery access to gas. A PS5, a better graphics card are not commodities. They are things that, hey, if you want it more, you can pay more for it. And if you might go, well, I don't want it that much, that's totally fine. Wait until the supply and demand balances out. But let's rotate through here and see what else gets said. Actually, that's the end of that clip segment. Let me jump to the next clip segment. I have to be careful here. There we go.
Do it. Simply put, they use bots. There's a massive number of automated programs that do this, but for today's example, I'll go with one called Carnage. Carnage is a fairly high-profile scalping program.
Do I want to let him talk about this? Okay, so I actually know a fair bit more about bots than most people because, again, I worked in this industry, and of course we used bots to monitor all the different retailers to actually make sure that, hey, they're not selling it under the prices they're supposed to be selling it at. That makes sense. That's something that you do as a manufacturer. If you have a map price and you want to be able to enforce that map price, you have to have some sort of vendor doing something like that for you, or you have to do it internally so that you have a record of who was pricing what where, so that you can enforce on, let's say that your Target went and tried to lower the price of your PS5. Let's say Target tried to, well, PS5 is a bad example, tried to lower the price of your PS4. They tried to go below what you are recommending they sell it at, and it's Target. Let's say that's happening, then you have a situation where Best Buy sees that. Best Buy sees that and goes, hey, we have to lower our price. If we don't lower our price, we're not going to sell any units. We have to do it. Sony, don't be mad at us. And you actually need some ability to either say, no, Best Buy, hold out. I promise you Target will be punished. We caught it. Or you need the ability to go, okay, well, we can tell exactly who moved first, so we're going to punish this person and not this person as long as this person then moves back up immediately when we tell them we've fixed this one. So, like, there's a couple different ways that you can do it, first mover versus all violator type stuff, but, like, yeah, we did the monitoring, and again, you use bots to scrape these sites. We've been doing this for ages. This isn't something new. Of course, scalpers are now using this type of technology to purchase things, and yeah, that makes sense. You're hitting these websites, you're seeing what the prices are, you get your bots complicated enough to do that.
Program that, even as I write this video, is targeting console releases around the world, successfully, or so they claim, grabbing thousands of units from retailers when they get a new supply, when they just restock. Not even a week ago, they were boasting about how they had destroyed the launches for multiple products.
Okay, so he wants to go on about how it's so terrible that these things are destroying the launches, and like that would sort of be terrible if it was like, yes, destroying these launches is a good thing. But that's not actually what they're doing. What they're trying to do, it's not like they're going, "Hey, let's make it so no one can ever release anything or no one can ever purchase anything." Again, they're correcting the price on something, and the reason that we're using this hyperbolic destroyed language in all caps and that we're seeing, oh, look at this, let's be caps, let's do destroyed, let's do these words that are going to be like, hey, let's be exuberant about it, is because the service that is being sold here is they are selling consumers, they're selling you and I on, hey, purchase time on our bot, purchase, reps of our bot to be able to go do this for you, so that either you can now be a scalper, or so that you can get a PlayStation 5 for yourself or an Xbox X Series for yourself, whatever the case may be. So, like, the reason that they're advertising this is because they're trying to sell their service, and their service is getting to use their bot. Like, this isn't like, oh, we destroyed it and we get to brag about that because it's so awesome. It's marketing language that is going to be used because they're not trying to sell PS5s, they're trying to sell you on buying their bot. The same way that you could get into, what's it called with Amazon, where people try to do, they make their own brands, they import stuff, maybe they slightly change a product, they import stuff from manufacturers from China, and then they try to go sell that. That became its whole industry for a while, and it got really popular. And guess what? Some people are making money doing that, but some other people are making money selling services that scan Amazon and produce likely categories to go do this sort of thing in. So, like, okay, even if you guys are taking chance with capital over here, you're investing a bunch of money, bringing product in from China to go sell on Amazon and figuring out if you can get to the top of the ASIN and sell your product, but someone else is going, I have safer capital that I'm deploying here to scan Amazon that gets to go, hey, and you pay a subscription service with me. I don't have to put nearly as much money down. I'm not taking nearly as many chances, and I'm profiting off of this industry existing. And that's the same thing that's being done here with the bot. Like, and that's why this destroyed language is getting used. So it's just kind of meaningless and doesn't really, like, oh, how terrible of them. They're not being terrible. They're advertising how their bot works. They're not, I mean, they themselves probably aren't actually doing scalping because, again, they didn't want to put that capital down. They're making and selling bot time. So, again, these aren't actually the scalpers. Are they making the tools that scalpers use? Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay. Let's find another segment here. And I'll catch up on chat in just a moment, guys. I've only got a couple more segments here.
It's been estimated that 10 to 15% or more of the entire supply for next generation consoles thus far is being scalped. Over 500,000 units as of mid 2021 were estimated to have been sold through a set of the higher volume auction websites, like eBay or StockX in particular.
Okay, so that's a lot. That's a lot. Why did Sony and Microsoft get their pricing so wrong? Why did they not adjust and fix it? Like, again, that's a long time and a lot of units to have not gone and fixed this pricing with. This isn't some like, how dare you scalpers be in there and go in here and fix the distance between the supply and demand curves because Sony or Microsoft and the retailers are foolishly dictating that this is going to be the price point when the demand is up here. Like, no, if the demand is up here, the price point is going to be up here. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be out, and there's no good reason for you to be out other than, well, we'll maintain our goodwill. We don't want to raise prices on something after we've released it. Why not? Like, I get it. It's a little bit of like, wait, that doesn't usually happen. Prices don't usually go up on things after they're released, on technology as time goes on, but it happens to us with gas all the time. Like, that's how economies work. This isn't really news. Mm-hmm.
But one scalper collective was even boasting that this would become the new normal. This was the way things were because their collective buying power and market dominance had opened the door to a new future where everything that you really wanted would have to be purchased from second tier middlemen.
Well, that's foolish. That's only going to happen if companies don't figure it out. Like, yeah, that will happen if for some reason, if companies try to go, we're going to stay down here on our pricing and do this, and retailers are going to go, yeah, we're going to stay down here on our pricing, or if regulation forces things to stay down here on our pricing, that would be true. But it just begs the question again, well, Okay, but what about when a company figures it out? What about when GameStop gets a little more creative and instead of GameStop just going, well, we're out of PS5s, but we have a couple bundle PS5s where we created our own bundle where we've added one game and maybe an extra controller, and rather than charging you the 90 to $100 that extra controller and game are worth, we're going to charge you 300 extra bucks or 200 extra bucks, whatever the case, for a game that you really didn't want type thing. And like, yeah, they get smart and they do that sort of thing, but you can just sell the unit for more. You can legitimately just sell the unit for more. And this scalper thing can only continue if retailers and manufacturers continue to go, no, 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 maintaining the image is too important here. It's not good business.
After launch inventories and restocks alike had been destroyed by their bot programs.
Yeah, but again, that's also, again, we're into marketing language here. And no, I would not heavily invest in let's build infinite bot architecture and let's build a ton of bots and do this forever because no, I wouldn't want to put a ton of capital down for that. You could do it over the course of the pandemic, sure, but I wouldn't recommend that personally because I'd look at that and go, hey, I would expect that eventually these companies are going to fix it. They're worried about the reputation hit that they'll take for raising prices on something after it was released. And how dare you raise prices during a pandemic? They're worried about the Twitter mob coming after them for how heartless of you. But again, price is something that goes that's there because of the demand. It is correct in my mind that someone who, let's say a big streamer like XQC, if XQC wants to stream FF7 Remake 2 or whatever when that comes out and he needs a PS5 to do so, it's appropriate that he can get one. And it's appropriate that he can get one because he'll spend the money to get one and he'll recoup that money in Twitch donations or whatever the case may be. Like, again, that is correct in how the model should work, as opposed to, no, you have a situation where people who absolutely make sense to use this thing, maybe we're not talking a streamer now, we're talking a developer who's working on the PS5 can't get a hold of a PS5 to do development work. They can't actually start making their game because they don't have the PS5 to do to use, to work on, etc., because oh wait, they can't get it. Well, of course they'd be willing to pay more to get it, and it makes sense that they'd be willing to pay more. But if you're going with a lottery system of no, we're going to sell these for $700, $800, whatever, and then once they're gone, and there's just nothing you can do, and there is no secondary market, there is no scalpers, they can't, and then our games get delayed. That is not a good outcome, guys. Okay. Let's move on to this. This was wild. Mm-hmm.
Growth, now we get to look, possibly, at its brutal fall. Late November of 2021, legislation is reintroduced into the United States Senate targeting bot programs that buy up retailer stock as their primary function. The bill is less about targeted relief for one specific industry like electronics than it is about broader
Okay.
holiday regulation. It's called the Stopping Grinch Bots Act, and it's definitely not going to pass by the holidays, so it's a weird name.
Okay. No, it's not a weird name. It's not a weird name at all. It's not. If it's not going to pass by the holidays, it's not going to pass at all, and it's being named "Stop Cyber Grinch from Stealing Christmas" because someone wants to be able to campaign on it. Someone wants to be able to talk about how, hey, I co-authored this bill. I authored this bill. Look what I tried to do for my constituents, and it was the evil other party members that stopped us or whatever. All this is something that's been decided. No, this isn't going to pass, but we want to go ahead and create the bill so that we, the writers, can campaign on it. This isn't actually the solution, and again, as I mentioned, it's also it's not the solution because it's not actually going to pass, but it's also not the solution because we see this where commodities get regulated, and we saw this with toilet paper, for example, even recently during the pandemic, where, hey, the stores, the Safeways, the Walgreens, the whatever, won't bring up the prices because those are commodities, and actually there is a big reputation hit for raising it on those, but also there's frequently laws that won't allow them to do so. It actually gets called price gouging in many territories, but that's strictly with commodities. That is, again, even with commodities, though, you still could find, hey, if you go onto websites, eBay's, for example, you can find those things that no one can find available for a higher price. They still did potentially exist, and it was by third-party sellers. So again, even when you make these things illegal, a black market of sort forms for them, a third-party market of sort forms for them. And again, I can go back to, we can point to portions of South America where, okay, it's been legislated that gas is going to cost this much, and guess what? People buy it and then illegally resell it for this much, and people buy the illegally resold gasoline because, hey, they need gasoline. It's a commodity. Like, this is basic economics, unfortunately. We might not like it, but this is basic economics and how the world works. So that is going to do it. I could jump into one more section about crypto mining and how there's a crypto mining drop because China banned crypto mining back in October. I don't actually think I need to cover that. I don't think that's like amazing, like market shift for that sort of thing. And yeah, that's good for the gamers who want to go get graphics cards. It's kind of an artificial suppressant of demand, and some of that demand moves around as those crypto miners find new places. But whatever, that's fine. So again, my take on this is it's sort of like the person who did this, and again, I linked it in the description below. This is Upper Echelon Gamers. Someone sent this to me, so I thought, sure, I'll cover it. And it's fine. I mean, he's taking a very pro-consumer, pro the little guy approach, and that's fine. But like, it doesn't make sense in this point. At this point, you look at this and go, yeah, the scalpers exist because there's a problem, but the problem isn't, oh, well, these things would be available for us to buy at retail price if they weren't. No, they still wouldn't be available for you to buy because there's not enough of them to go around. There is more demand at their current price point than there is supply. So you might happen to get one, but there would still be a shortage. And more likely than not, you wouldn't be the one to get one, and you wouldn't have a way to overcome that ability to get them. The real solution here is that the retailers and the manufacturers, or some combination of them, simply need to raise the price while they bring on more production ability until they're able to get more units. That is the real solution. I know people aren't going to like that solution, and that's, going to farm me way less views than evil, evil scalpers or evil companies. When I'm saying companies, just charge us more money. But like, that is the right answer. Okay, so I will catch up on chat now. It's going to take forever to get your hands on a Stream Deck. Right. Ben says, I wonder why Sony doesn't just raise the retail price, even by $100. I'm sure it's a negative public perception issue. They could say cost of manufacturing has gone up. I mean, they should, and I'm sure it is a negative public perception issue. Like, I agree. That is very likely what is driving this. At the Sony end and the Microsoft end, at the manufacturer end, it's probably a public perception issue. And at the retailer ends, keep in mind, even though these retailers sell out PS5s and Xbox X Series instantly, they're still not a very big percentage of what they sell of the money that they make. Less true for GameStop, but more true for most of the retailers like the Amazons, etc., that sell this. So they don't really want to think about, let's change our whole policy for not matching prices and, things like that, when this is sort of a little segment of what they do, and this is an unusual segment of what they do. We haven't had much scarcity in Western markets for products for quite a while. So there hasn't been much need, and for quite a while, I kind of mostly mean for kind of decades there, with a very few exceptions. Consoles, even in previous generations, have been one of the items that sell out and are just ungettable, though it's much worse now with consoles, graphics cards than it has been in the past. So they're mostly going, we don't want to, we're big, slow behemoths, giant retailers that changing our policies is hard and expensive, and a lot of work goes into them, so there's some sluggishness to change there for something that is not a high percentage of their volume. And then for Sony and Microsoft, it probably is a perception issue that they should get over. Quacker says, paying isn't necessarily a perfect way to measure how much you want something, by the way. A poor man may want something more, but may not be able to buy it, but a rich man can buy things he doesn't care about. It's the best way we have, however, so I understand it. I mean, they might want it more, yeah, but like, it sort of becomes into, it is the proxy that we use. They're willing to, you could say they want it. You could say it's maybe not so much that they want it more, but they are willing to give up more to get it. And you can say the poor person simply can't give up more to get it, but like, okay, that again, we have organized our economy not around oh, I need this badly. And again, like that doesn't really work because this isn't a commodity. If it was a commodity, it would be a little bit different, but this is an entertainment system or a business tool in some cases, not a hey, you need this to feed yourself thing. You need this to you know, you need this to feed yourself type thing. So like, but I hear where you're coming from. The only bots you've seen Lucio or lately are Lucio. Yeah, we are primarily an Overwatch channel. How do you think Sony and Microsoft internally view scalpers? I'm sure they view them as annoying. But if they really, really viewed them as a problem, they would talk to their trade association, which is the Entertainment Software Association, and they would say, "Hey, we'll up our dues, but please go pressure the legislators to actually do something like pass this." But the fact that this, as far as I can tell, was not written by ESA, and that I'm not hearing about big moves to actually get something like this passed, tells me that they don't actually care that much. They find it annoying, but they don't find it so annoying that they're moving and talking to their trade association, which for those of you that aren't aware would also be like those are the groups that do lobbying. They're, as far as I know, not talking to them. I suppose I could talk to some of my contacts and find out if there's more going on there, but again, I'm pretty sure I'd know if there was. So I think they've, again, view this as it's annoying. They wish they weren't there. They don't wish they weren't there so much that they're actually going to do something about it. Again, if they were on top of this, they'd just raise their price. What would Lieutenant Surge do to scalpers? That's an interesting question. When will the US ban crypto? Current takes leads me to believe that that's not an in the near future thing. US banning crypto. Current takes. There's been some back and forth on that, but my current take is that that's not in the near future. But you should, do your own research before making financial decisions. Disclaimer. In the name of saving the planet from global warming. Yeah, I mean that would be the way that would be one of the levers to play on to get enough support to pull on to get enough support to be able to do so without extreme backlash. Crazy how long people are struggling to get a PS5. I mean, it is, but we have, our supply lines are a wreck, and we know our supply lines are a wreck. Nordstorm says, "Yeah, COVID has made me realize how nice our stable supply chain and economy is. It's great. Our stable supply chain. We had decades of basically being able to go, hey, if you want it, you can almost universally get it type thing. And now, for the first time, we don't. Of course, that don't has mostly been fixed by if you're willing to pay more, you can get it for more. Even when it was like, hey, there's new cars available, things like that, because of the chip shortage, that sort of thing, the car shops did correctly figure out, hey, this is what the sticker price is for a car, and there's a waiting list to get the car at sticker price. But if you're willing to pay more, we can move you to the front of the line type stuff. And, car dealerships figured that out during the pandemic, and they were another industry that was hit by the chip shortage, by the supply line issues we have, all that. Now, obviously, car dealerships are a little less worried about protecting their image slightly. Obviously, they care a lot about their image as car companies. These car companies do tons of advertising. They care about their image, but dealerships always have a little bit of a like, oh, their kind of sleazy thing. So them going, hey, we're going to charge more is like, okay, yeah, fine. But the reality is most of their dealerships are the equivalent of selling to the Best Buys, the Amazons, the GameStops, etc. And the Best Buys, the Amazons, the GameStops could figure this out. Temporal-based economist, thank you, Nuntype, thank you. U.S. doesn't need to ban crypto, just needs to make accounting taxes so cumbersome to businesses that they never want to adopt crypto. Maybe, but if crypto is profitable enough, like that could actually be worse. That could almost lead to a situation where like crypto is only adopted by the elites that already have the tax avoidance specialists in the form of accountants, lawyers, etc., that they're the only ones that can navigate through the complicated tax thing. It's sort of like the issue that we have right now where it was proposed that, hey, we're going in the US, we're going to go ahead and double the staffing of the IRS. That's the Internal Revenue Service. That's our tax bureau in the US. We're going to double the staff of that, and we're going to double it specifically so they can go after the super rich billionaires who have their armies of tax defense teams who do all these things, who are mostly legally not paying as much in taxes as people, as much as a percentage, not as much total as people who are doing standard W-2 income type stuff. And of course, the the congressional office that estimates how much that actually saves versus makes, et cetera, in terms of investing this much into the IRS versus how much they're expected to get back, of course, came back and said, no, within 2 years, we think their tax defense specialists are actually going to find out a way around this to still pay less. And probably what then happens from there, and this wasn't stated, is that doubling of the IRS staff just goes, hey, we exist, we're not going to go away, we don't want to all lose our jobs, so let's go after more middle class people. But that's getting a little more political than I usually get. Didn't watch podcast. How much did Cashier leak? Cashier leak. It was great. The podcast was great. That was more controversial than our previous podcast. For those that don't know, he's talking about the cow or the collegiate podcast that we had Cashier and EMF on for guests at, and that just happened earlier today. You can check that out on Collegiate Overwatch's Twitch channel, which isn't linked in the description here, but I have tweeted about before, so you can find it from here. I have linked in some of my other collegiate videos, so you can find your way to it if you like. And it was fun because it was a little more controversial. I, of course, started out with the, perhaps mean take of, hey, biggest surprise in NACE playoffs was that UNT ended up as, the worst performing of the four teams from the Big Six there, which immediately got the fist flag. Now, I love you guys. I love you guys over at UNT, but that one made for some good fire as we were then able to keep that going and have some interesting fights over most influential positions, whether Bay State or Northwood was going to come out on top. There was a lot of support for Bay State there, but I won't spoil more. You guys can go check it out. What's the point of elites adopting it if it doesn't serve as currency to them? Remember, currency is the end goal. The future possibility of it having currency is what primarily gives it value. So, like, I see what you're saying, but then what you do is you adopt enough of it once you've decided that it's going to work, and then you potentially go into a place of, okay, and now let's use our lobbyist arm because we have our tax defense specialist arm. Now let's use our lobbyist arm to remove the restrictions on it and to make it easier to get now that we have most of it type thing. And that might not work out. That would be a gamble that might not work out of, hey, there's not enough of it left. If this is the total amount, for example, of a limited currency like Bitcoin that is out there, and they've already grabbed up this much, people might not go, no, we're not buying in when there's only this much available. There's only this much still out there, but it might. But yes, that would be the problem that you are correctly highlighting there, Nordstorm.
But
Okay. I think that's going to wrap it up. No need for this to be a long one. Oh, this already went longer than I expected, but that's fine. If you guys are enjoying this type of content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so. If you would like to see more content like this, join my Discord in the description below. In there, you can react to become a watcher if you like. And if you become a watcher, you will get pings when I'm going live. You'll be able to see what topic I'm covering. Is Temporal talking about economics, real estate, Bitcoin? Is Temporal talking about Overwatch? Is he talking about other video game news? Is Temporal, what wild place has Temporal gone to? Is he, what else is going on? Is it Pokemon? Who knows? Temporal covers a lot of different things with a heavy emphasis on Overwatch. And we do a lot of collegiate Overwatch scene stuff as well, as you probably gathered with my discussion with University of Texas Dallas's main support here. Okay, that's going to go ahead and do it. Again, drop a like if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.